Hi, everybody. Welcome to our very first edition of the Green Stream. This has kind of been a little pet project of mine. I built a studio here, insulated with hemp. We're trying to move towards a more environmentally conscious focus here in the cannabis industry. And so at the Hemp Connoisseur, obviously, we've always been touting the major properties of hemp and what they can do to help create solutions for our environment. And so we want to talk about those kind of subjects. We're going to talk to experts in the industry, but we also want to talk about current events. We're doing a live stream because I love going live. I love the imperfection of live. And honestly, guys, it's faster to get a live stream out once we get all the technical issues done than it is for me to record it and then go into the editing room and do that. I'm also homeschooling my 6-year-old and keeping activities going for her. So it's become almost a necessity that we do this kind of on the fly. And so there's nobody better to have as my very first guest as Miss Kat Novak. She is sitting there right on the phone, waiting online. Kat and I have known each other since 2016. She came in to do sales for us on the ad side, and then, as often happens when people come in to do sales with us, they start finding out that there's all these amazing things going on in cannabis, whether it's on the marijuana side or the hemp side. And Kat found herself basically smack dab in the middle of doing a dirty word, right? Brokering between the labs and the farms and helping provide connections on the biomass side. Before we get me talking about Kat, let's have Kat talk about Kat. So Kat, welcome, and so happy to have you on the very first episode and the first guest of the Green Stream. How you doing today, Kat?
I'm good. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me on as a guest.
Well, I am very happy to have you on as a guest. Let's see. And hey, there's a picture of Kat right there. So, everybody, just so everybody knows, I'm not the best technical person here. I'm doing this all by myself. It's like I'm driving a Ferrari in first gear because the studio is kind of set up awesome, but I am not the person who's supposed to be running this. I'm just supposed to be the host, and there's supposed to be somebody here, but social distance and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm doing this on my own, so you're all going to just have to bear with me for any technical issues. Kat knows that we kind of tend to do things a little bit on the fly anyway in this industry. So, Kat, can you give a little bit of background of where you came from before you jumped into the hemp industry, and then more importantly, towards the topic that we're going to go to, is what you're doing right now because of the COVID-19 crisis, okay? But let's start off with what your background is, Kat.
Okay. All right. So, background, I spent 20 plus years in the corporate world in upper level senior management for companies like L'Oreal, Shiseido, TG Hair Care, Dermalogica. So I was in the professional beauty industry. In 2015, I decided that I needed to be in the hemp industry and help try to create some normal business in this industry, which, we all know about that.
Normal's hilarious that you even said that.
Yeah, there is no such thing. No such thing. But I jumped right in, working with David, helped him with the THC championship, which has been a blast year after year. And, like David said, found myself smack dab in the middle of labs, farmers, and the brokers. So I kind of shifted, started working directly with lab to lab, farm to lab, only thing that ever works in this industry. And again, just trying to bring the industry to become more professional, the way business is supposed to be done.
How's that been going so far, Kat?
It has its challenges. But for the most part, I'm just determined to help the labs. So recently I've just been bringing labs together and getting one lab to do one thing, take it from biomass to crude. And then we send that crude over to another lab and take it to isolate, or we send it to another lab to take it all the way to tea-free. It's been working out pretty well. It's been shutting out a lot of the people who don't belong in the industry out, and it's actually been helping some of the labs stay open during this time of social distancing.
So that brings us to the great point. So you've been making all these great connections for hemp labs and the farmers, but what you've been doing also fit perfectly in what the needs are right now with the crisis from the coronavirus. Can you kind of speak towards that?
Correct. So because I've spent years building this vast network, I got a call from a U.S. medical supply company asking me to assist them and helping hospitals, FEMA. We were even on with Governor Cuomo's secretary about 6 weeks ago, and because of my experience in the hemp industry, I could literally just roll right over into helping supply medical supplies for my network. So my first client came in, and she's a FEMA contractor, and that immediately took them right to my direct medical supply company and placed her order. She's had 3 orders shipped out already, and she's about to place another massive order. So everything was going great the first 2 weeks, and then here comes the brokers again, jumping into the mask industry.
So
started messing things up.
That messed it all up. So can we back up before it got all messy? You were literally working with FEMA, and what was that experience like? Well, I mean, in this crisis, how do you feel like the operations are rolling from your experience? Like, are they on point? Is it a big old mess? I mean, we're hearing all of these stories. Okay,
no, actually, the FEMA was a very, very smooth transaction. Very smooth. Mm-hmm. And I was a little confused as to why FEMA, did not reach out to the suppliers directly themselves, like 3M, for example. Mm-hmm. So I've since found out that 3M, the manufacturing, they did not have the sales support team to support the amount of calls that were coming in every day. So they reached out to people like myself to assist them in bringing the government contracts in, the FEMA in the hospitals.
Now, why is that? Was that because FEMA just already had their regular orders in place, and they were just used to like fulfillment, and that was essentially it? Is that the reason why they didn't have the sales forces in place?
No, actually, they did not have the direct connections. Some of the supply companies.
Interesting.
And 3M, the manufacturing facilities were not set up with a sales team in place because this all happened so quickly. So they could not handle or field the calls, so they came to us, asked us to vet out the hospitals, the government agencies, and assist them with the sales side of bringing the clients in.
I mean, that's kind of crazy to think about, right? That they're like
very crazy.
I mean, they're calling you, like they don't really know you, and they're asking you to vet out who you're talking to. Obviously, that seems kind of like a recipe for disaster. And is that what you're saying is happening? Is now you have all these crazy brokers like, well, I can make a buck off of this. Let me jump in here. I mean, is that why you're seeing all these brokers popping in, because they can take advantage of the chaos?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Now,
and one thing that's been very upsetting to me, same thing in the hemp industry, these brokers who have jumped in trying to make a quick buck, they don't bother to educate themselves on what it is that they're selling.
Gotcha. What are you selling right now for 3M?
N95 respirators. The majority requests come for the 1860s. Which could be used in surgery, and then they have the 8210. Those are best for the firefighters, ambulance drivers, those sort of people. But the hospitals mostly want the 1860s.
The 1860s. Okay. And how many are you able to supply in these orders? You said you have a couple orders coming in or a couple large orders coming. What kind of size are we talking about as far as these orders?
Seems hard to believe, but because all of these hospitals and all these other agencies have had such a hard time receiving, products from the stockpile, the government, it seems hard to believe, but I've literally got orders anywhere from 10 million to 100 million.
Well,
and these are contracts that they want monthly.
Well, I mean, that's obviously not that hard to believe right now when we're talking about this, right? So, I mean, can you speak about any of the direct hospitals you're working with right now or states that you're able to help supply? And are they sharing sentiments about what's going on their end as well?
Oh yes, they're saying they are not receiving
Mm-hmm.
the mask that they were being promised.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use Colorado, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you've seen Governor Polis on TV, the past month, he has placed 2 orders for ventilators and masks, and his first 2 orders were redirected to other states.
Do you know what states those were redirected to?
I believe one was Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I know where they went. Don't know if I can say it without getting in trouble.
Oh, well, that's why you're on here, so I can get you in trouble. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to get you in
Yeah.
trouble. But
Yeah.
I mean, so, you know, people are
And
very.
they obviously were not going to New York.
They weren't going to New York.
Governor Cuomo every single day on TV begging for
Mhm.
supplies. And we did speak to Governor Cuomo's secretary, and this was her biggest challenge early on.
Okay, not that
was
this isn't their.
getting the federal government
Yeah.
to send them supplies.
So here's my question right now. Are you seeing, I know you said there's more brokers coming in, so it can muddy the waters, right? Are you seeing
Mhm.
any kind of semblance of like people are finally getting their feet under them as to how to operate in this new normal that we're dealing with? Or is it getting worse? Is it about the same as it was?
It's getting worse. It's getting worse.
I
But luckily,
think
I
you were
don't
gonna
have to
say
deal
that.
with the brokers.
Right.
Yeah, I really, of course, they text me and call me all day long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's on the ground? What's on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
So they obviously do not understand how this works.
Sure.
So I do not take their calls.
Mm-hmm.
I take calls from hospitals and government agencies and FEMA. I mean, today we are actually working on 500 individual hospitals.
Wow.
That we actually have a call with 3M in an hour and a half to try to get this order through. Because
Wow.
the hospitals are still in desperate need.
Wow. So are you when you say 500 individual hospitals, are they kind of pooling their sources together for better negotiating power, or is that part of
Yes.
what's that? And are these 500 hospitals in one region, or are they spread all over the country?
All over.
All over.
All over the country.
But they're now kind of coming together to have better purchasing power. Is that what it's looking like?
Yes, they had to, because they are not getting the assistance that they need.
So
they had to bring everything together.
So, I only have you for 3 more minutes because I'm going to do my damnedest to try to stay on schedule here. And I have Xerxes and Lily Steyer who are waiting in the wings to come in. And we're going to be talking about victory gardens and how to be more sustainable at home. So I love this conversation we're about to have. But let's just have a quick moment and acknowledge the fact that you really shouldn't be having to do what you're doing, should you? I mean, this is one of those times when really it should just be the federal government coming in, one group coming in to purchase all of this and then supplying it out there. But yet people like you have to jump in and find a solution from nothing because we're not getting that guidance. I mean, are you getting any guidance when you talk to anybody on the federal level, or is it really does it really feel like it's every person for themselves right now?
It's every person for themselves.
Wow.
Like when you receive a call and you have someone on the other end and they're crying and begging
Really?
because their nurses and doctors are getting sick
Wow.
and dying.
Wow.
And that's why I jumped in to help. Not about the money, not about anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I literally cannot stand turning on the news and watching these doctors and nurses begging for supplies. And when they have to reuse their mask for 5 days, they're putting everyone at risk.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's insane. And Kat, I know that's why you do what you do. And anybody who's worked with you on putting deals together know that you are only going to work with people that do a good job. I know you have created an extensive blacklist just in the hemp industry. So for those of you out there with whoever want to work on brokering raw biomass, Kat is an amazing contact to have. I know they can reach out to you through Facebook because I put your name on there. So good luck, Kat.
Oh, thanks.
You're like, thanks to a lot, Dave. But I just love that it's somebody like you, because I know how you operate, Kat, that it's somebody like you out there who's got the backs of the hospitals, and you're trying to get the supplies out to them. We're probably going to want to check back in with you next week and just kind of see if there's anything's changing, anything's getting better. Are we preparing for the next wave now? I mean, these are questions I want to know. Like, because there's another wave, right? We know it's coming. I mean, I love how everyone's like, let's reopen the country, but we know there's another wave coming, and we have to pay attention to that. And so we're going to do that.
And please tell everyone out there, please do not drink Lysol.
Dude,
it will kill you.
First of all, you know what? Here's what's messed up, right? Can I just tell you, this is the dark side of my brain. Because thank you for saying that. Please, nobody drink Lysol. Don't inject Lysol. Because he said inject. Don't inject Lysol into your body. And then also, if you still do that, you deserve whatever happens to you. Because, come on. Really?
Yeah. It will not kill the virus. It will kill you.
It will kill you. It will. I mean, I just, like, if somebody out there is doing this, I mean, first of all, I guarantee you that they're scared, but also you're obviously somebody who believes everything this president says. And is there a little part of Darwinism going on right now with this? I mean, like, my child knows not to, like, do anything with Lysol or cleaning products, and she's 6 years old. So if you are a grown-ass person and you listen to the president in what is not a press conference, it's a rally / whiteboard session now, is what it seemed like to me when I saw the clips of today, right? It's like he's just like, hey, why don't we try this? It's like, what? You know what? Sit in another room and have that conversation. And when you want to talk to the rest of the American people, have, like, what you're finally going to say. I mean, I know this seems pretty easy to understand, but I can't believe I have to say it. But, like, yeah, the time in front of the press is not the time to have a whiteboard session about random things. In a room, and he goes, hey, what about Lysol? And then the doctor's going to be like, dude, that's a terrible idea. No, we're not going to do that. Then it's knocked down before it goes out to the people. But the fact that he's just throwing shit on a wall is just insane to me. Anyway, that was my little rant that you had to sit through, which you're used to sitting through my rants anyway, Kat. So, listen, I love you, Kat. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much for joining us, Kat Novak. We're going to have you back on again, but really appreciate you stepping up and doing what you're doing for all the medical professionals out there working the front lines. So, love you, Kat. We really appreciate you being on today and taking the time out to talk to us on our first show. For everybody out there, you're gonna, I've mentioned before, I'm not the most technical person, but we are about to admit Mr. Xerxes Steyer and his wife Lily Steyer on to our Zoom. So you're gonna have to bear with me, y'all, because it might be a moment before I get this. Oh, I hear Xerxes. Xerxes, you there, buddy?
We are here.
Yeah. Oh,
hello, sir.
Look at you guys. All right, hold on. We're going to get you guys up on camera right there. Is that right? No, everyone's going to have to deal with this in a little moment.
We have a hole here.
You got a hole? What's okay?
Thinks it's a head.
Oh.
Okay. And everybody's going to have to look at a weird...
Thank you, David. I'm going to drop off.
Kat, you're the best. Love you. Thank you. All right.
Kat,
You get to it.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys. So one real minute, everybody's going to see what my computer switchboard looks like because, I'm not technically proficient enough to do all of that yet. And we're switching. There we go. All right. And Xerxes and Lily are right there. How you guys doing today?
So
Wow.
good.
Good. All right. I'm going to switch my cameras now. Now we can see each other on the Zoom thing. So, so I'm going to sit back and look at you. Look at you two lovely people. So I got to let you guys know, Xerxes and Lily are both from the same town as us. And it's not going to be a secret. You live in Edgewater, Colorado, which I think is the coolest town in the Denver metro area.
We love it.
It kind of is, right? We're like this little Mayberry right on the border of the Denver County line. We're like this, I think we're 1 square mile town. And one of the benefits of being in a small town like we are, but also by a big city, is we're pretty progressive as a town, and there's a chance to make an impact, which is one of the things you both are really big on, right? Is making an impact on the local level, which is why I wanted to have you guys on. You guys have your own podcast. Can you tell everybody what the name of your podcast is and how they can find out about it?
Yeah, it's Sustainable Colorado. It's on iTunes and I think Google Play. I'm
Yep.
trying to get it up on a couple more.
Okay. Well, we'll do whatever we can to help
But-
you out. Give these guys some love because they really are awesome.
Yeah.
And
So sometimes it's like in a living room chat, and
Yeah.
other times we're talking to political leaders. So
exactly.
it's
and,
a lot of fun.
And you guys are doing this from your home, which we love. I love the plants in the background. You're working the Zoom backgrounds, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
It's a garage.
It's a garage.
These are our own plants, though.
Those are
They
huge. They are your own plants. I got it.
From
Yeah,
our
yeah.
garden.
This was a picture from our garden from early April.
Nice.
Yeah,
and
so-
what am I looking at behind you?
Oh, we've got some arugula, some carrots,
Lettuce,
some lettuce.
probably
Nice.
kale somewhere in there.
Kale somewhere in there. Well, I've been wanting to talk to you guys about this. You guys, I know you both gave us a bio, so I'm going to ask you your bio again real quick for everybody because I love hearing it from people. I love making people talk about themselves. It's more fun, than me talking about myself. But your first podcast was about victory gardens, and it's so fitting to have this conversation right now, right? So I did a little bit of research on victory gardens. I've always known, I've heard it. Victory gardens did start in World War One. I didn't know. I always thought of World War II, but they actually started in World War One. And Woodrow Wilson commissioned
Yeah.
Herbert Hoover to actually start in the United Food Administration. I think that's what it was called at the time, but don't anybody correct me.
Sounds good.
UFA,
Yeah.
and they pushed on the victory gardens because it helped with the war effort that people were able to supply their own food because food was being sent to the front lines, is my understanding on that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had food shortages near the tail end of World War II from like 42 through 45 was when it really pushed up on the World War II levels. And that is the little bit of knowledge I have on victory gardens, just so you guys know. I just expended it all, and now it's all onto you. But it's really important. Like my wife and I, we've been talking about chickens, like getting chickens going and raising those, and like, do we want to start a garden? We've wanted to do this for a while. Now we're kind of feels like more necessity than novelty, right?
Yeah.
So can you guys kind of talk about the victory garden philosophy?
Well, I think you gave an excellent background on it. And I think that really the concept of what bringing a victory garden in now is all about is that there is, there's a strain on resources. There is we're just in a very different climate all of a sudden. And the idea that it could help you financially as well as from a health standpoint, working in the soil is one of the most immune boosting things that you could do.
Really?
And I think all of us have that little thing in the back of our minds of how do I stay healthy through this drama? And also it's just nourishing. I also think there's an incredible kind of strain on the earth right now as well. And, just in general. And so this idea of actually getting people connected to the earth and connected to the process of gardening and having that understanding is, I don't know, I'm just super excited about that. So as we started talking about victory gardens at the beginning of this pandemic, people were calling us, whether they had listened to the podcast or not, saying similar to you, I've been super interested in gardening. It's always seemed like a novelty. And now all of a sudden I have, X, Y, and Z reason to do it. And that's just been a lot of fun. I'm going to get on a call with a friend in Edgewater after this and walk through her garden through Zoom and just sort of talk her through the possibilities of what it would look like to be serious about gardening.
And I want to do that with you as well. And maybe
let's do it.
What we can do, Lily, is we can come. I'd love to have you come over. But
Right.
but we can potentially maybe record the session if you want, and so people can
Sure.
see here's what the process could look like. At some point when we don't have to be distant, you guys are always going to be welcome to come to the studio, of course. I'd love to be the house for your podcast. That'd be a lot of fun. It's one of those benefits. Like, look, I don't know anything about growing, and I know we're the hemp connoisseur, and so everyone assumes that I grow cannabis. I don't, because a lot of reasons. Now in the black market days, I knew all the people that grew, and then I helped connect those people. So that's kind of where my standpoint was. But I was never a grower. I never thought of myself as having a green thumb. But to me, it seems so important to do for not just my personal needs, right? I mean, like the Victory Garden is to help out the rest of, humanity, isn't it? I mean, that's kind of the reasoning behind it. Can you speak towards how is this good for our environment when we're growing our own food?
Well, I think it's essential to identify how we're going to eat every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
I noticed on the news, and the news has been full of lots of good news lately. Um, if you look for it,
You
but
gotta
some
look
of
for
it's
it.
been not so good.
Right.
And one of the things I've noticed lately is several countries are beginning to limit exports,
Right.
food exports.
Right.
And so there's a lot of fear
Mhm.
driving decisions right now, and fear drove us all to stockpile on toilet paper and rice and
Right.
beans and drain the shelves so that they're at a point where they're hard to resupply. And so
Sure.
now the supply chain's a little bit broken,
Mhm.
and there's some indications that it may actually be significantly broken. So growing food right now is essential, not just for victory, but for survival, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, if you have some greens popping up in your garden right now, you're going to be in a good spot when you're hungry.
Right.
And that's what I think when you say environmental. So boy, it doesn't get any more environmental than growing something green, right? So you can
Right.
plant a tree, you
Mhm.
can grow some hemp. There's just all these great things to do for the environment. It's a carbon sink, so you're pulling 90% of biomass is carbon from the atmosphere, so
Mhm.
it comes from CO2, and that's a great way to reduce our carbon footprint just by planting
Right.
anything at all.
Well,
And I'd
and
add to that just the food supply chain in general. We're looking at basically a catastrophe, right? We're in a
right.
crisis. The predictions around climate change having further catastrophes is pretty real, and the idea that our grocery stores, if for some reason we were cut off from all of our food supply chains, we would run out of food in about 3 days with our grocery stores if there was not access
Wow.
to cars and trucks and trains
Sure.
getting food to these
Yeah.
stores. So 3 days, I mean, I would hope we could at least feed people for a couple of weeks
hope
as
so,
we kind
right.
of get our stuff together.
Right.
So having a garden, learning to can, learning to preserve your food, these are all things that just take back your own power and put power in your own home rather than relying on like this government that like, what? Oh my God, what is this government doing?
Yeah.
And it's terrifying, right?
Right.
It's a little freaky. And so this is one crisis, but the thought of further crises down the road, it's significant, right?
I think that's a really good point, and I'm so glad you said it. You basically took the words right out of my mouth. This is a way to take back some of your own power, right? Now, look, not everybody lives in a home that has a yard that they can have a garden. That doesn't mean they can't have a garden. Is that a correct statement?
Oh, correct, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, container gardening is pretty simple. You have the advantage of not having to weed your gardens because you'll already have just sort of hopefully pristine soil in there. There you can grow year round if you have a south facing window, for example, indoors if you have an apartment. There's just incredible resources out there for doing it. Also sprouts. I mean, if you just want to get some good greens, sprouting on your kitchen sink, kitchen window kind of a thing is an incredible way to do it too.
Oh, see, and I think what's funny is we're talking about something that was big in the 1940s, but even before the 1940s, right? It was everybody gardened, right? I mean, like most people had some type of a garden and grew their own
Something.
vegetables, right? It's interesting that we're now coming from this high tech world that we're in. I mean, we're zooming it in right now,
Yeah.
but we're talking about a low tech solution to give you more comfort and power in your lives. I'm excited to start a garden, honestly. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I also know that I'm an impatient person. And we are impatient people in this society. I mean, Americans probably worse than any other country. We want everything what we want it now. That's not going to happen with the garden. It is going to teach us some like slow the food down kind of moments, right? And just like understand we do have supply chain issues to deal with right now, but this is something that we're building for that future. What would you give for advice if there's one thing you want somebody to impart if they're going to start a garden, what would that advice be?
Um, well, I think being mindful of kind of the three big things. So I teach children how to garden and cook.
Yes,
I believe
you do.
I have taught your daughter.
You have taught my daughter how to
I
cook.
have.
Yes, yeah. Our kids go to a great school.
They do.
Well, they miss it right now, but they do.
Totally miss it.
They do.
But I think the three things that I talk to kids about and to any beginning gardener is just sun, soil, and water. Those are the real basics. And I can throw it out to kids and sort of ask them like, what does a plant need?
Yeah,
But when you
simple.
look at those three things, you do need to be mindful of each one of them. So looking at let's soil, for example, we have totally bought the wrong kind of soil in the past in our gardening years.
Kills everything it touches.
Yeah,
Really?
you can have too high of sodium levels.
Labeled organic too. I was pretty upset. It took us a few years to recover from that batch.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're pretty big mulch gardeners. So talk about impatient. Like that's a very, very slow process.
Right.
But chips and straw and leaves are probably our biggest thing. So when you have leaves fall on the ground, gathering them up and keeping them for your garden, following nature and following what nature is doing is kind of the key to gardening, and just always using kind of Mother Earth as this guidance to show us what to do. And mulch is the one thing like she's madly in love with.
Sure.
And so we are also.
It's true.
Well, and you think about this ridiculous cycle we have, right? Right now, if we want to, we can bag up our leaves in a plastic bag. No, Xerxes are
so
like,
bad.
We're already starting off wrong here. But right, you're bagging up these leaves. You're putting it in a plastic bag. Then you're bringing it to your front when they do the landscape waste. But now you have a garbage truck that has to drive by and pick up specifically landscape waste. So that's a pickup just by itself now, which some people are like, this is amazing. They're picking up on landscape. It's like, no, you should be using that and not putting it in plastic bags. So it's this crazy cycle that like just having a garden helps break, doesn't it?
In so many ways.
Right.
In so many ways. You know, if you have a place to put any kind of organic waste, you're keeping it out of a landfill. In a landfill, it tends to anaerobically decompose and generate methane, which is a much more powerful greenhouse gas. So that's one thing that, you know, you'll hear about energy recovery from waste, municipal facilities, but you know, it's really hard to pull methane impurities out of a landfill and send it to market. I mean, that there is no good supply chain for that. So it really just ends up going into the environment.
So that's something I maybe I should be embarrassed that I don't know this, but I did not know what you just said, that so organic waste in a landfill creates methane.
Yes.
Whereas
there's no oxygen. The typical decomposition process for most organic things in the earth is to create CO2.
Right.
So the carbon decomposes and it goes up in the atmosphere as CO2, but methane's kind of a worse case.
A much worse case. Right.
Yeah.
I get that. Bill's entered the waiting room. What time are we at? Bill's coming on.
Yeah.
Oh, he's coming. He got some time. He's ready though. Look at, I love that.
Yeah. Cool.
So, I don't want to see the waiting room. Okay, I guess we're just gonna have to look at that. I don't know how to get rid of it. Sorry, everybody.
I can't see it.
We can't.
Oh, you can't see it.
I don't know what you.
Oh no, everybody else is seeing it in the live stream sphere there. And you know what? I don't know what to say about it. You know, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. You know.
First show.
We'll get there, people. So deal it. All right. So back to this. So sorry, I kind of lost track of my train of thought there for a moment, but. We are going to have Bill on about farming. So this is actually a really interesting conversation.
Wonderful.
So Bill's going to be talking about co-op farming for hemp farms. Now we're talking about mass scale hemp farms. I think that I have to ask this question. Let's just imagine everybody's doing victory farms, right? Let's just go into like, I know, it'd be amazing, right? Everybody's doing their own victory farms. Does that hurt farming? You know, does that hurt farmers?
So. And right now what's hurting farming is that the restaurants are closed.
Yes.
Right. So restaurants are closed right now. They're not buying produce. So the farmers right now are basically just tilling it under because they can't get it to market. They can't. Wow. There's no buyers. Right. Yeah. So the buyers are few, I should say, and it's you and me going to or Lily going to the grocery once every 2 weeks maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. So there's
That's it.
not a big outlet right now. I hope some farmers markets are starting to pull it together
Right.
and provide like what is it, curbside pickup?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that they're working on some strategies for
Sure.
getting that produce to people who are going to shelves
Mhm.
that are empty. But the shelves aren't empty of produce; they're empty of
No.
other
No.
things.
Yeah.
Why would they be empty of produce, right? I
Right.
mean, come on. Why would we all
Yeah.
be eating healthy? Right? I love hearing this, by the way. And a side note is
Yeah.
I'd be like, I can't stop eating, and
Yeah.
but they're
Eat
not eating.
salads.
Yeah, they're not eating healthy, right? Support the
cream.
farmers.
Some JoJo's.
Yeah, keep your canned goods, everybody. Hold on to it in case there's a food shortage, but don't
Yeah.
eat all
Right.
that stuff right now. Eat
Yeah.
the fresh stuff that you have access to.
You know,
I've lost weight since the quarantine.
Nice.
I also do this whole, I do intermittent fasting, which is basically timed eating, all right? So like at noon is when I get to have my first meal, and then I stop eating at like 8. And okay, so when I'm cheating, it's like I might eat at 11 and I might be done at 9, but that's about it. What I've noticed is I eat less, and then one day a week I do a fast as a cleanse, and so I'm eating even less then. I'm not starving myself. I never feel hungry. The first few days I was an asshole, okay, but after that I'm good. And so like I find that I'm eating less. So when I keep seeing all these people that I'm just eating, it's like, okay, well, get off the damn couch. I actually am watching less TV than I was pre-quarantine, which seems kind of weird because everybody else is like, I'm catching up on all these shows, and I'm like,
yeah, we haven't really been either. But gardening is an incredible way to get active outside
is.
as
It
well.
really is,
And
yeah.
with us not really being able to go on big adventures to the mountains, which
Yes.
is killing all of
I
us
know it's killing all of
Coloradans,
us, all of us.
Oh my God.
being able to just like explore your own yards. And one of the biggest things with gardening too is observation.
Yeah.
And spring is like the most amazing time to observe because every day there's small but significant changes occurring.
Yeah.
And so getting out into nature, into your own little plot of nature is it's a great way to take care of your body.
It
And
is.
then if you're mulching, there's a lot of lifting.
there's a lot of
too,
lifting
right?
and raking. It's hopeful. You just
It's
feel
an
like
act
you're doing
of hope, right?
you're-
Because
I
you
love
plant
that.
a garden and you believe in tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to come, and that plant is going to get a little bigger, and it's something to look forward to every day.
And I don't know if we should market it differently than a victory garden. I mean, maybe it's a hope garden. Maybe it's a power garden. You know what I mean? It's like you said. I mean, we have to change our mindset already. And I think what I'd love to talk about, still with the backdrop of victory gardens and what each individual can do to make a difference. Let's talk about the major difference we've seen because our planet, and I want to speak about this, like, obviously, Lil, you come as a background as a chef, which is what you're bringing. You bring that in unique knowledge. Xerxes, you come from the Colorado School of Mines. You're a teacher over there, correct?
Yep.
And you worked with NREL. Can you describe what NREL is?
It's the National Renewable Energy Lab. They're aiding the United States and the world in the clean energy transition.
Right. So pertaining to everything we're talking about, I've been saying this for a while. It's like it feels like our planet just like we didn't quit, we didn't go cold turkey, but we dramatically just quit smoking, like the planet did.
I like that.
we went from like 4 packs a day down to like a half a pack. I mean, that's a pretty big dramatic shift, and we've seen it faster than our lungs would see the change, right? I mean, the Earth. What are we looking at? A 45% reduction of greenhouse gases right now. That's the number I saw. I may not be exactly accurate. Or
New
air
Delhi's
quality went down 45. I mean, increased by 45% or whatever you want to say.
New Delhi, it's like orders of magnitude. They went from toxic air to healthy air, in a few weeks.
Wow.
So here's the question I have: we are gonna f this up, right? I wish we weren't, right? But like when we finally do get things back to normal, although maybe we won't. Maybe back to normal is not happening for another year, or not. I mean. And for the planet's sake, part of me goes, I kind of hope it happens that way. Now, for people in their pocketbooks, you're like, what's the balance, right? I guess that's where we have to go to, is this is one of those things we can do. What are some other things we can do, looking at the improvements we've had around us, that we can maybe hold on to? What are all the little silver linings we can find in this whole process? What can we do with what we're learning right now?
there's so many,
I know,
right?
I
I
was gonna
mean,
say there's a
I was
lot.
thinking even in, from chaos is opportunity,
Yes.
right?
Agreed.
And luck is being prepared when opportunity arises.
Yeah.
So I'm really optimistic. I tend to be optimistic even in terrible
Sure.
situations, but
Yeah,
there's
you
so
make me
much.
look pessimistic, I
No.
think, half the time. But I would say again, going back to that idea of looking to the earth, she's here to teach us,
Yeah.
and just considering switches. And I keep disappearing, sorry.
No, it's okay.
But just, looking at this remote working experience, could companies start to say, like, 3 days a week we come in, 2 days a week you're remote learning? Would those slight shifts be helpful? Yeah, I think that there's lessons being learned during this process. I think another thing is kind of radical simplicity, and that's something that I feel passion towards. I don't feel like it's an easy thing, but also the idea of consumption. We've been talking to, having our little Zoom hangout dates with friends, and talking about, oh my God, I'm saving so much money because I'm not eating out and buying a bunch of stuff that I don't need. I think all of us have seen a switch in our consumption, and a switch in consumption means that you're buying less crap.
Sure.
We're attempting a zero waste year for 2020.
That's our challenge.
Shifted dramatically
I bet it
with
has.
this whole
Yeah, I bet it
COVID
has.
experience.
Sure.
The bulk sections are gone.
The bulk sections have
touchy.
disappeared.
Right.
So we are back to a more plastic
It's
driven
hard.
way, but just the idea that every single time you make a purchase, you're thinking about the trash that it is wrapped around that purchase. And it's been kind of killing us because we've been obviously having more things shipped than ever before.
Yeah.
But we use those cardboard boxes as mulch.
Yeah, that's
In
one of
our
our
gardens.
That's great. No,
The
that's
lasagna
really,
gardener.
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, those are things to think about. Like, I get cardboard is more recyclable than a lot of things they task us to recycle. But is recycling even working? I mean, I guess that's one of.
Don't get me
No.
started.
Okay,
It's not.
okay. So guess what?
That's like a whole.
Great. So
another
next
one.
next
Yeah.
time I have you guys on, I think we're going to talk about recycling. And like I think the thing for me is, like, I think people need to not try to, we have a tendency, I know I have a tendency sometimes, that if it's not perfect, I'm not doing it. Right? So if I am not the best at recycling and I'm not doing this perfectly, then what's the point? And it's like, that's not the right way to think, right?
Yeah.
It's really like, look, if everybody did this one thing and then they added one more thing next month and one more, at least we're going somewhere. But I think if we can't do it perfectly, sometimes people just throw up their hands, like, forget it, I'm not even going to bother at all.
Yeah, I've certainly heard that with recycling. We still are big recyclers.
Right.
We're just conscious of wish cycling, for example,
Yeah.
and
Wish
that
cycling.
idea of putting something into our recycling stream that may or may not be, and that has an impact. That actually can matter in the greater scheme of things.
Right.
Contamination, basically.
Contamination. If you have your neighbors doing a lot of wish cycling, but you actually are recycling perfectly, there is a chance that by the time it gets to the recycling location, that the entire truck could be thrown into the landfill because of
Okay.
somebody doing it so poorly. So
Or a whole
yes, we
shipment.
could go off on
But
this.
can you give,
and
all
as
right,
you
Yeah,
what's a
we'll talk
common
about that for
example?
sure.
Just because you said it, I got to ask one question about it. What's a common example of wish recycling?
Clamshells.
Yeah, you cannot.
You get a
recycle.
salad, it has that little recycling
Thank
logo
you.
on it.
Berries.
I
Not
just won an
recyclable.
argument. All
It
right.
depends on the
Oh, no,
facility,
yeah.
but
It
our
does.
facility here in every facility is different,
Right.
right? And so you got to
Yeah.
actually go and see what they actually can take, and,
Right.
and ours is like, what is it, 1, 2, and 5?
1, 2, and 5
5.
is
That's
the
it.
most commonly recycled plastics, and part of it is you need to have an end buyer for that material,
Mhm.
and we can technically recycle 1 through 7, but whether we have an end buyer for 1 through 7 is a different story.
That's a different story.
So in Denver, we have an end buyer for 1, 2, and 5.
Right.
Boulder, you can do clamshells.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But then you have, the best case is to just not consume that stuff, right? I mean, that's like ideal.
Right.
But single-use plastics, I mean, I've seen people who have done the whole, we're not going to do single-use plastic, and it's work. it's a lot of work in our
Yes.
society to
Yeah.
try to not do single-use plastic. I mean, you have to bring your containers with you and be like, hey,
Mhm.
no, don't put it in the clamshell. Crap,
which we
it's
do.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But it becomes too late. Oh, somebody is trying to call me, and it's my partner during the live stream. I'm not sure why.
Nice.
Hold on a second. Is there a problem? Oh,
That was me. I called you.
okay. I know. Hold on. Let me just make sure everybody can look at my stuff right now. Where's
Well,
that
and one
up?
thing about single-use plastics is a lot of us aren't necessarily using them right now.
No.
Right.
Because a
No,
lot of
we're
us
not going out
aren't
to eat to fast
doing-
That's
food.
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mhm.
Well-
and if you are getting pickup or curbside or whatever, you probably have silverware at home.
That's
right?
exactly right. But
You're
then they're
taking-
still giving it to us, and it's funny
Yeah.
because we have our, I mean, we like, when we do it, we're doing like, Vietnamese or something because my wife
Yeah.
is Vietnamese. And so we get a lot of that. And they're always giving us chopsticks and everything. I'm like, okay, we have them. We got this. So we have to remember, when you call ahead, please, no napkins, no chopsticks, none of
extras.
that. We got all this stuff. And I think that's a really good point as well. Look, guys, it's Bill's turn to come on.
Can I leave you with one more positive
Please
thing
do.
that's going
Let's talk
on?
positive. I love it.
Because there is a lot going on. I'm serious, and one of the things is we're looking at many trillions of dollars in stimulus going into infrastructure.
Yeah.
Most municipalities and local governments already have 100% clean energy mandates. They're on the books. They're written into law, and so there are so many shovel-ready projects about to get pumped full of money towards clean energy. There's going to be probably the greatest wealth building opportunity of our lifetimes. And so there's solar and wind, these are the biggest job growth industries. And I'm really optimistic this is going to take us all in a good direction.
Well, and Bill, if you're listening to the show, please know I'm going to be putting you in just a 1 second, but you are speaking towards something, and it's a wonderful segue to go into what Bill's going to be talking about as well. But one of the things I've been thinking about having a conversation about in regards to this virus is, there's lots of people have no jobs. I mean, we as a company are dramatically shifting what we're doing. This is why I'm doing this. I mean, we've had to suspend all activities when it comes to the print magazine, and there's a very good chance that we're just never going to print another magazine again, which on one aspect is upsetting, right? Because we loved our magazine, and I loved picking it up, and and I loved seeing people looking at it and recognizing the amount of quality work that our group has put together. Christiana and DJ on the production staff of the magazine have done an amazing job for years with us. And so I'm really bummed about that aspect of it. But at the same point, I'm really excited about what's the reset for who we are as a company, right?
Yeah.
And this is kind of that chance, right? If you look at, the hardware of our planet is the planet, and we're the software. It's time to reboot and update the software, right? And so what are the jobs that you're talking about, right? The solar, the wind. Did you lose your job? Did you love the job you lost? Because you probably friggin' didn't anyway, right? I mean, honestly, you probably didn't love that job. Let's be honest. I mean, a lot of those jobs, the service jobs, I've worked in the service industry. I love working in restaurants. I feel bad for everybody in the service industry. It's a great job to have when you like to be around people and talk to them, and you love to serve them food. I love all of that stuff. But honestly, is it really what you want to do for the rest of your life, or do you want to be a part of the solution down the line? There are, like you said, jobs in solar energy, in wind. What are the jobs that are going to help create renewable energies, renewable patterns in our society? This is that chance for a lot of people out there, and I love that you said that. That's, I guess, what I'm saying is like you made me say all this. Xerxes. I want to have you guys both, Lily and Xerxes, I want to have you guys back on often because I know you guys have a lot of education that you can impart on us. And this show is not going to be just about cannabis. It's going to be about what we can do. What are the solutions for our planet right now? We want to talk about current issues, but right now, the current issues and what we can do about our planet are pretty much lockstep, and they will be for till the end, I guess. And so I love what you guys do. Please let everybody know one more time before you leave. Where can they find out about your guys' podcast, and what's the name of it again?
So Sustainable Colorado is the name of our podcast. You can definitely find it on iTunes, Podbean, Google Play.
Google Play. Okay.
But we also have an Instagram page at Sustainable Colorado.
Awesome. Well,
Excellent.
guys, we really love you guys. Really
Love you
appreciate
too,
you
man.
coming on. I can't wait till we can actually hang out and
Yes.
have a glass of wine and so on together. But until then, I'm happy to do the Zoom meet and have you guys keep imparting your knowledge on us. I'll keep stealing from your brains anytime I can.
Perfect.
Love you guys.
Thank you so much.
You
Happy to
guys
do
have
it.
a good one. You take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. My next guest coming in right now is Mr. Bill Althouse. Hopefully he's coming in. There. Wait, he's coming in. Here he is. He's showing up in a moment. We're connecting to Bill on the audio. He's got to put his video up again. We had a little technical issue working on that, but are you there, Bill? Can you hear me? So a little background on Mr. Bill. I said Mr. Bill for those of you who know old Saturday Night Live. You'll get that one. But Bill is one of the smartest people I know. That's the first thing I'm going to say. He has had his hands in solutions for our planet longer than I've known him, basically since I was born. Yeah, I just dated you, Bill. Sorry. Are you there?
No.
I hear you. I hear you. We can't see you, buddy. Can you put on your video? We'll get there. You start working. You remember what you had to do the last time, I think. You'll get it.
I did it. I can click. Yeah, I just clicked on it and I was there.
Uh-oh. Well, I hear you. I see you, buddy. So we can get started while you're figuring out your video issue if you want. But love to get... There he is! What's up, Bill?
Hey.
How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing great, David. How about you?
I'm good. You know what, man? I'm actually... This is like what I live for, is these conversations. This is the first show. I think it's super fitting that I've had Kat on and then Lily and Xerxes and now having you on. You were actually one of our first guests way back in the day.
Before anyone knew what we were talking about.
Before we still don't. I still don't know what I'm talking about, but that's all right. I know. But when we had the Hemp Connoisseur show on iCannabis Radio. So big shout out to the OGs when we started the iCannabis Radio show. And I remember Samantha Walsh was my co-host, and she's like, "You got to talk to Bill," and then I find out like half the people I knew you as well, and they were like, "Bill Wallace is brilliant. We got to talk to." And every time we have a conversation, it always teaches me something.
At the beginning, there weren't many of us, so it was pretty easy to know everyone.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. It was a much smaller group at the time, right?
Yeah.
Bill, can you give everybody? I didn't get a chance to get your bio out there for everybody, so can you just give a little background to everybody to let them know a little bit about who you are, what you do?
I guess old energy engineer was the old days.
On
And
photovoltaic cells, correct?
Yeah, I was the head of engineering for the first distributor, the first manufacturer of photovoltaics in the world.
I love how humble you are. You're just like, yeah, I did this, I did that. You know, the first photovoltaic cells ever. Okay, next thing I did.
Another time when everybody was certain I was crazy. It was $100 a watt, right? So
wow. What is the price now about? Do you know what the averages are?
Under $1.
Under $1 a watt.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
So we had to go to places where power lines could never go. So vaccine storage refrigerators, village lighting on remote islands across the Pacific.
Sure.
Forest ranger repeater towers. And ironically, the first cost-effective application in the world was cathodic protection for an oil pipeline.
Of course it was. Right. But no, I mean, I get it. I mean, you know, that's the energy supply chain there, right?
Yeah. And then the farming thing has always kind of been a Jones.
Yeah.
For a really long time. Sold at the Santa Fe Farmers Market for 15 years, subsidized by my energy company because farming don't pay, right?
No.
But we had a lot of fun, and then one year I won the county fair with these exotic French strawberries, best strawberry in the world. And a couple weeks later, someone walks up to my booth at the Santa Fe Farmers Market going, "Hey, so you're a real farmer?" I go, "I don't know about that." They go, "Well, you're a front page champion of the county fair." And I went, "Wow, it was cheap, and that berries are really amazing." And they said, "You know anything about marijuana?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. I've been growing it off and on for 30 years. But other than that, not
So
much."
maybe a little bit, right? Yeah.
And they go, "We just got one of the first dispensary licenses in the country, and we need a grower." And I said, "Well, you know, that's interesting. I just read this article from Israel about this kind of cannabis that can't get anyone high that appears to be like a medical miracle. And I'm kind of curious about that. So, yeah, I'll grow you the shit that gets people high, but you got to pay my R&D to develop the one that doesn't." They thought I was nuts. we just got a marijuana license
And you want to do something
grow
different?
something that can't get anyone high? What is wrong with you? Well, the end result of that is we became the first commercial producer of cannabidiol in the country.
Can you name who that farm is now, or?
It's a dispensary, and I'm not a big fan of the dispensary world. So,
Okay.
but I don't know if they still exist. I'm sure they've been bought and sold 15 times.
Probably, right.
But it was supposed to have been a nonprofit under the original rules, and it kind of went south. One of the reasons I bailed is we got all this press, miracle drug discovered and everything, and we got buried with requests, and so the people in the front office started charging $800 an ounce, and I walked out the door.
Got it.
I mean that's how I got the
for hemp, right? I mean, this is for hemp essentially.
Well, that was marijuana.
It was marijuana. Okay.
But it was the first CBD plants.
Got it. Yeah. Got it. And so from there, you segued into just full-on hemp farming.
Yeah, well, I came up before the law passed. First, we got a bill through the legislature to do a study of bioremediation using hemp to pull toxins out of the soil. We got the mining industry to get that thing passed in the middle of the night. It was amazing. No debate,
did they?
No committees, no nothing. The mining companies wanted it because we told the mining companies, look, you've got all this toxins in all your surface soil that you're required to clean up. Maybe just throwing hemp seed on the ground might pull those toxins out, and you can get off cheap instead of scraping a foot off and replacing it. So they ran over to the legislature. Boom, we got a law. So the first legal planting in the state wasn't as hemp. It was as a research study for bioremediation.
I remember that, and we actually did a big article on that. And this was all pre-Amendment 64.
Exactly.
Yep. And so for those of you in Colorado who understand what we're talking about, Amendment 64 is when we actually legalized cannabis for recreational uses, but then we also did slip in there very wisely hemp as well for being legalized. And it is still hilarious that marijuana paved the way for legalizing hemp. I still think that's hilarious. Yeah, but that's true. And I think the phytoremediation is a really big conversation to have, right? I mean, we can have a whole separate conversation just on that.
Well, what we learned from that project, and we were inspired by, they had done it at Chernobyl to pull radioactivity out of the surface. So
let's not wash over that, right? They planted hemp to soak the radiation into the hemp plant and clean up the soil.
What do you do with the hemp is the question.
That is the next question. What do you do with the hemp?
Nonetheless, it was very effective.
Sure.
And that study, we needed a control. So the mining guys were already, it was small amounts. It was a handful of seed here and there. But we needed a control. And so I had a friend in Fort Collins, and hey, I need to clean a soil in the state as a control to compare to this toxic soil hemp. And he goes, Happy Heart Farm. It's the oldest certified organic farm on the Front Range, biodynamic, 35 years. Let's go over there. And that's how I met those farmers. And then they retired 3 years ago, and that's our farm now. But we met them by planting the first legal planting on private land in the state.
That's fantastic. And now that kind of leads us into, so from there you had the say the name again, sorry.
Happy Heart.
Happy Heart Farm.
Happy Heart, yep.
Yep. And you looked at the co-op model and decided to move towards that model, correct?
Yeah, it's, Santa Fe Farmers Market taught me a bit about the character of some people in ag. We talk a lot about sustainability. Well, when you go to the Santa Fe Farmers Market, you're going to see over half the guys there been farming the same land for 400 years. This is a lesson in sustainability.
Totally.
And then there's one group that's been farming the same land for over 1,000.
Wow.
The native population.
Sure, of course.
Spanish, 400 years.
Yeah.
And so we got an idea what that looks like. And what was unique to both of those cultures is they never grew for money. It was about, in those communities, the most respected individual was the one who grew the best tasting food. And typically it was giveaway, storage. You want to get as much as you can into storage so you can bunker over the winter and eat good till spring. And that's why it was the commercialization has done horrible damage to agriculture. It brought in the drives that brought us chemicals and glyphosate and all that kind of toxic poison. And it's pushed the farmer to the brink. The problem is the farmer gets a penny and the store gets a dollar.
And see, that's amazing because, I mean, not even knowing farming, like, I mean, I know I'm farming adjacent, right? So I get to see and talk to farmers, not like you do. I mean, just had Lily and Xerxes on there, and I'm already looking at, like, yeah, we're going to start a garden. It's a lot of work to do a garden. I mean, rewarding
Exactly.
work, but that's a garden. That's not a
Well,
farm. That's
the farm
immense work.
the farmer does all the work,
All the
and the
risk,
middleman
too.
and all the risk, and the middlemen take 99% of the money. And it's even worse in
Mm.
CBD hemp.
Yes.
What happened this year was a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
The farmers who planted, over 80% of the total crop of hemp CBD in the United States didn't sell. It's sitting in barns rotting right
Wow.
now. The price fell below the cost of production.
Mm.
So even the farmers who sold their material
Mm-hmm.
didn't really get what it cost them to grow it. And the problem was the middlemen,
Yes.
the extractors, the brokers, the distributors, the retailers. The retail price didn't fall. The retail price only fell a little bit, but the price to the farmer fell 95%.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not like these guys are passing on their savings. Um, you know, so let's talk about solutions now, right? So how is a co-op farm system a solution to that problem?
There's two ways of looking at economy in general.
Sure.
One is command and control.
Mm.
Whether you want to call that predatory capitalism or fascism, nonetheless, you have an owner
Mhm.
who gets all the benefits of whatever goes on at that enterprise. It's not democratic. And when we talk about democracy being important and what makes America great, and yet democracy is defined as a vote once every 4 years, and every day it's fascist, where the owner of the business can off your head anytime he wants. You look at him crooked, you're fired.
Right.
That nobody, there's no working together. Everybody is a contract slave.
Right.
So there's an alternative to that, and it's cooperative behavior. The cooperatives are a pretty old way of addressing
Mhm.
this kind
Mhm.
of issue,
Sure.
and it's all about value added
Mhm.
and vertical integration.
Mhm.
So if the farmer is only getting a penny, what are all the steps getting paid for?
Yeah.
Well, they're getting paid for any kind of processing, making the wheat into bread, packaging, distributing, all those steps. So if we can bring farmers together where it's a democratic enterprise,
Mhm.
not a command and control
Wait,
enterprise.
I just have to say this because there could be people listening or watching, and you're going to have somebody say, "No, he's talking about communism. That's socialism. What he's discussing," but it's really not, is it?
No, it's collaborative capitalism for the individual.
Mm.
See, ordinarily the individual can't play in the capitalist world,
Right.
and we have to sell our labor or dump our products for a penny on the dollar. But if we pull together, we can individually participate, like in the cooperative model. Each member farm is actually a business.
Mm. Mhm.
It's a family business,
Sure.
and he needs to make a living, but the price he's getting is not good. So you can pull together a really good example, and not so much anymore because of what happened in ethanol and the energy industry and all that. But for a really long time, there were a bunch of farmers in the Midwest, corn belts. Markets were killing them. They weren't making a living. They weren't getting the cost of production. So they saw the credits for the renewable fuel program for ethanol,
Mhm.
and they leveraged their output. They're the owners of the means of production.
Mhm.
And that's the crazy thing. Since they own their own means of production, they don't need the brokers if they come together to be a significant enough chunk of production to leverage it.
Sure.
So in this case, they all leverage their annual production. They leverage it anyway for loans and insurance. And in this case, they leveraged it to build a $25 million ethanol plant.
Mm.
And now all those farmer members were earning 4 times as much as they would get selling the corn to a broker.
God, so we're looking. This model exists for other
Oh yeah.
farming industry areas, right?
In Europe, all food over half goes through a cooperative network.
And the farmers are more stable that way.
Yeah, profiteering shouldn't be on medicine and food and education. There's some things that profiteering really doesn't have a place.
Wait, no, we don't want unfettered capitalism.
Do you want the CEO of the utility standing over your iron lung
Hell
negotiating
no.
what you're willing to pay for the
Exactly.
next
I know.
kilowatt hour?
Look at
So all the co-ops in the world are regulated by 7 principles. So when you hear these 7 principles, compare it to how a corporation works.
All right, let's hear them.
Corporation is to maximize return to the shareholders. That's the only law.
That's it. Okay. The shareholders are gods.
Cooperatives,
Mm-hmm.
it must be owned by the members,
Mm-hmm.
controlled by the members, used by the members, demonstrate economic autonomy, no investors, funded internally. Education about what you do, why, what co-ops are. Concern for the community that has to be demonstrated, like in our case, we donate almost a third of our total production.
Wait. You donate almost a third of your total production. I just want to make sure that doesn't get washed over right there. Okay.
Yeah, free. Our whole brand is free hemp. And then lastly, cooperation with other cooperatives. So every cooperative in the world is required to operate under these 7 principles.
Sure.
Focusing on the interest of the member, under their control, in a democratic structure, 1 member, 1 vote. I have people in the hemp industry going, well, I don't know about that co-op thing, man. They can just fire you, can't they? And I go, well, if they can, it's not a co-op.
Yeah, I get it.
No, it's democratic.
Right, and I think that's the problem, right? We have this constant misinformation going out there about, perfect example, democratic socialism. Everyone's like, it's communism. It's not that. But nobody wants to go into those nuances on that side. And so they have these broad brushstrokes. They go, oh, I know what that is because I've heard somebody else say that's what that is, so it must be what it is.
Well, I define socialism a little different than a lot of people
Sure.
to try to make it clear.
Mm-hmm.
Socialists are the only protectors of free markets, in that they're the only ones who point out when a market isn't free. Okay, free markets are great, but anytime buying or not buying a product causes you irreparable harm, that was not a free choice.
Right.
You got to be able to say no to a product. That's the very definition of a free market. So if you're shut out of healthcare, you can die.
Mm-hmm.
If you're shut out of energy, you can freeze.
Yeah.
There's so many things that cause you irreparable harm that, like my example of the utility and the iron lung, these are things that should not be subjected to the free market. Like right now, we're seeing it. What are people willing to pay for a K95 that costs 15 cents to make?
Unbelievable.
We're seeing lots, like your earlier guest, we're seeing 100 million mask lots. Yeah. Okay, that lot cost 10 million, and they're selling it for 600 million.
Yeah, because they can.
A $590 million profit. But this is the problem with predatory capital.
It is. And, it's interesting because, we touched on it a little bit with our last guest too, but this consumerism ideal that we seem to have in this society, right? Like one of the things that, I remember even from 9/11, right? When they were like, well, what can we do for our country right now? And it was like, go out and buy stuff. That was what we could do for our country. It was like, go out and buy stuff you don't need. And so because our economy right now has been built on people buying useless pieces of plastic. That's essentially kind of what it breaks down to, right? There's stuff that's not plastic. I don't mean but it's, we're just buying a whole bunch of useless shit that if we didn't have it in our lives, we really wouldn't miss it.
Well, there was debate amongst a lot of corporations
Mm.
with Edward Bernays as their consultant. And a lot of consumerism was built off the work of Bernays, Freud's grandson, who used all the theories of the dark side and fears and greed of our minds to control us, and they were highly effective. And the discussions they had with the heads of corporations over the 60 years of Bernays' career, the elemental one was, how do we get people to buy things
Hmm.
that they don't need,
Yeah.
can't afford,
Hmm.
and are bad for them?
Yeah.
And they figured out how to do
Of
it.
course it did. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's interesting. So, like I talked about this at the end of the conversation. So now it's near the end of our conversation right now. And Bill, we look, man, you and I, we always just scratch the surface of a conversation. So I definitely, like I said, like with our other guests, I definitely want to have you back on the regular, because I think it's really important for our farmers out there to start looking at what you're doing. I know they know more about co-op farming than I do if they're a farmer, usually, right? Or but are there a lot of farmers out there who don't even know or understand what a co-op is
Well, not in the farm world, in the hemp world, yeah.
in the hemp world?
But yeah, like 80% of all the wheat in the state of Colorado goes through Grainland, which is a farmer-owned cooperative.
Okay.
So they put it in storage. They wait for the price to recover before they ship. It's pretty standard practice. Probably a third of all the production in the country goes through a cooperative. It's not as high as Europe's 50, 60%,
Right.
but it's pretty common. And we're trying to get our CBD hemp cooperative going this year. So any certified organic farmer
Mm-hmm.
in the state of Colorado that practices regenerative agriculture, and that's something I would have loved to get into at depth.
Oh yeah,
What
we
a
got you.
difference it makes when you grow with these kind of practices. But no monocroppers; these are real farmers, and we're offering them $25,000 worth of hemp clones up front for nothing. Uh,
$25,000.
dollars worth of
Oh,
and that,
$25,000. I actually said 25,000
yeah,
clones in the text, so that was a mistake.
yeah, it's 5,000 plants. It's 2 acres.
That makes way more
and
sense.
and our
Yeah.
goal is to make them $100,000. And now, if they were to try to sell that same amount of crop, they couldn't get 5,000.
Right.
So we're trying to give them 20 times what the market would give them by giving them an ownership share in our vertically integrated to retail structure.
Hmm.
So we get the whole retail value. Now, simplistically, what we're trying to achieve is we can drop the price of CBD products 90% and pay the farmer 10 times what he's earning now if the farmer owns the company.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. That's crazy stuff right there. Well, so I definitely look. You already gave me our next show that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about regenerative agricultural practices. Where can
Awesome.
people reach out to you if they are interested in your co-op program and in getting $25,000 worth of clones, and how they could do that?
Fat Pig Society at gmail.com.
Fat Pig Society
at gmail.
at Gmail. All right, he just gave out his email address for you guys. Fat Pig Society at Gmail. Reach out to Bill.
Any organic farmer, there wasn't to do regen. You needed a tool that no one in Colorado had, and we bought one last year, and I want to offer that for free.
Wow. See?
To any farmer in the state that needs to knock down his cover crop with a crimper, we have the super crimper that can do that job, and we'd love to loan it to any farmer.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that, Bill. Right on. Well, listen, Bill. I mean, you and I, again, we could go on, and we will. I'm definitely going to have you back on. And I know you're big on intellectual property rights as well, and owning the genetics, correct? And I know there's some
Well,
programs.
not us owning it. What we've done is there's been a lot of seeds sold in the United States that would break the legal limit of 0.3%.
Right.
So rather than get upset about who's selling bad what and what,
right.
we created a third-party neutral nonprofit platform that anybody who has a variety and thinks it can perform can say. We're partnered with the universities and with the state and the top agricultural genomics foundation, and we can screen their plants to find the ones that won't give farmers risk. And in exchange for helping us get their stuff to farmers, we'll protect their intellectual property and then get them listed as a real variety. So far, not a single CBD hemp plant has made it through the hoops to become a legal plant under agricultural rules.
Wow.
And so we're offering that to any breeder to take you from the gray to legitimacy right now as a service.
Wow, what a fantastic service to provide. And I know you're working with the top people in research on that at CU Boulder, I believe, correct?
CU Boulder, that's the Agricultural Genomic Foundation. It's the most extensive gene sequencing library of cannabis in the world today.
Wow.
And so they're excited about us bringing in a broad diversity of new genetics from all kinds of breeders.
Right on. Well, fantastic, Bill. Bill,
Yeah.
love you, brother.
Hey, love you, man.
Hey, man, thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being behind the farmers and having their backs. I think it's more important now than it ever has been. And so we really appreciate what you're doing, buddy. Keep up the work, man. Keep imparting that knowledge.
I like what you're set up. I'm really excited about what you're going to be able to do here with your new rig.
Awesome, man. I'm so excited about this show, man. I really am, because it's like I get back to the roots of having the conversations with all the brilliant minds out there that I want to do, and I feel like it's just my job is to be a conduit for the smarter people out there, So.
And I'm in my easy chair and my farmer clothes.
I see you are.
Clean up and
I see you
go
are.
down to the convention center to do the speech.
That's exactly right, man. That's right. So, for right now, guys, this is what we're going to do. I mean, we're going to have conversation with brilliant people like Bill. You guys come on and feel free to ask questions. At some point, I'll be able to do the chat room without having you guys all seeing it. So we'll get it there. But thanks so much, Bill. And
thank you, David.
We'll talk again soon, buddy. You take care, buddy.
Stay well.
You too. Bye-bye. Okay, guys. So let me just do a quick little switch over here. Bam. All right. So, guys, that's the first time we're doing the green stream. Obviously, we may have some technical issues as we're rolling through this, but I really appreciate you guys tuning in. We want to have more and more conversations like this. We have the capability of doing this every day, 5 days a week, but we do need sponsorship for this. If you guys are interested in sponsoring the Green Stream Show, please reach out to us right on Facebook at Hemp Connoisseur and message us there. And then I will get you our email. I'm not going to just put it out there for everybody right now. So message us at Hemp Connoisseur at Facebook, and I'm happy to connect directly with you if you're interested in sponsoring the show. Or if you want to be on this show, we are looking for people who are at the cutting edge of science, whether you want to talk to us about supercapacitors and how great graphene is and how hemp can become graphene, what we can do with hemp as a construction material, what we can do, victory gardens, raising chickens in your yard. We want to talk about the solutions that are going to make this a better planet. We want to talk about how to make the cannabis industry more sustainable. So getting biodegradable hemp plastic as containers for dispensaries is going to be a huge conversation that we want to have in the near future. Who is growing much more sustainably? How can you make use less energy while you're doing your indoor grow for cannabis? How are dispensaries doing that? We want to talk to those thought leaders out there, guys. We're going to talk about current conversations. Someday I may just get into politics. Deal with it, because we will talk about it. This is my show, and this is how we're going to do it. All right, guys. So I want everybody out there to please be kind, be safe, be smart. All right. And until next time, peace, love, and hempiness to you guys all.